the zone is a peak performance state that is as spiritual as it is mental. What do you mean by that?
Whoa. Well, now I could talk for hours on that.
Let's do it.
Well, I stumbled onto what I did not know was the zone as a hypnotist. So in my private practice doing hypnosis with clients, I started that in 2001. I was happily helping people to like quit smoking and lose weight and sleep better and get over anxiety and confidence issues. But a lot of people don't understand what hypnosis is, but basically it's the half awake, half asleep state. Like every human passes through it as you fall asleep and then again as you wake up. So if you think of like beta is active, analytical, wide awake state, alpha is right below that, theta is right below that, and then delta is right below that. And we call delta is what we call sleep. So if you're able to help somebody to just, relax into alpha, and this is all measurements of the conscious mind, not the subconscious mind, but just a little bit less conscious activity, they're in this quieter state of mind. And, if they're super tired or had a long day, they could drift to sleep from that. Or as a hypnotist, I can help them hover in it. And then because that conscious mind is somewhat quieter and more relaxed, it's less critical, which means I can then give suggestions for positive change, and it's more, people are more receptive to that and blah, blah, blah. So I was doing that. And when people would come out of hypnosis, they would say things to me like, wow, that felt euphoric. It felt amazing. I've never felt like that before. Or they'd say, I can't believe how long I was in that state. It felt like 5 or 10 minutes, and it was probably really like 45 minutes. They would say, like maybe as a hypnotist, I could hear an ambulance go by or something, and I would ask them after, did you hear the ambulance? Did it, cause you to emerge a bit? And they were like, oh, I didn't even notice. So things would kind of disappear around them. So, there were some common traits or whatever to this state. And then when I started working more and more with athletes and basically interviewing, like, have you ever been in the zone? What did it feel like? They would say, everything disappeared around me. Time just flew by. It felt euphoric. And I was like, at first I didn't really connect the dots. And then I was like, wait a minute. They're describing the same state of mind. So again, that's like 2005, 2006 or something. Probably 2015, science came out and said that according to brainwave activity, elite athletes, when they're in their peak performance state, they're in alpha. And I was like, I knew it, right? So when you're in that state, you are at your best self, meaning the opposite of that is when you're critical, right? Worrying, doubting, fearing, regretting, second guessing, overthinking, trying too hard, all of those things that can get in the way of any human, but especially athletes when they want peak performance. The absence of those, meaning less beta activity and definitely the better use of the conscious mind of not thinking about worry and doubt, then not only are you in this alpha state of the conscious mind, but you're also tapping in to your higher self, your deeper purpose, if you want to say, your true capacity. We are our own worst enemy. So, by doubting ourselves, by regretting and such, we are not tapping in to our true potential. And to me, that's more than, I guess, physical. I am a very spiritual person. I do believe that we are like a soul having a physical experience. We're spiritual energy having a physical experience. And the more that we can get out of our own way, the more we can tap into the power of that.
Okay. That's a amazing, great answer. And I can tell it's how you actually experience things and have learned. So it's not something you read in a book.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the things you read in a book don't always sound like that. So that's And that's what's interesting to me. Is that your experience? What you've read about the zone is
I
different than what
have,
you've
oh my
seen?
gosh, yes. And there's so many things that have brought me to this point. And I find that if I pick up a book by a sports psychologist, even some of the known best in the industry, um, there's one in particular. So maybe 15 years ago or something, I knew I wanted to write a book for golfers. And, I just kept putting it off and putting it off. So one time I was flying to California and I thought, I'm going to buy this other person's book, and everybody knows him in the golf world. And I'm going to read because everybody talks about him and I'm going to see, maybe I can get some ideas and spark my interest. I didn't get past the first chapter and I was not a fan of what he was saying. He was basically telling PGA Tour pros, it's one thing to get on, to make the cut and or to get on the PGA Tour and to qualify. The next goal will be to win on tour, and expect to be disappointed afterwards. Expect to have a low. Expect that there's all this momentum and excitement leading up to it, but you're going to crash after. And I was like, oh,
Sounds
no.
miserable.
Yeah, no, I'm all about presence, mindfulness, being in the moment. That author was absolutely right. If your end all be all and everything you define yourself as is to win on the PGA Tour, if you define yourself as that and you put all your eggs in that basket, you will experience exactly what he said, because it isn't the end all be all. But if somebody can change their perspective to, I want to be my best in each moment, each shot, each hole, no matter what I'm experiencing, even if it's a miss, there's opportunity for growth and understanding. With the right mindset, a person, an athlete can grow a lot versus just having temper tantrums and being frustrated when they miss and then repeating the same thing over and over again. So, being able to deliberately grow and get better and better mentally and mechanically is something that can be done very deliberately. But if all the focus is on the win, and I did see it when I worked with PGA Tour pros, I'd be out there at the tournaments and I was credentialed, so I was behind the ropes and I could see a lot of things. And it was actually an odd thing to witness. A PGA Tour pro, just the way that it's set up and how if you're in the lead on Sunday, you're the last team to go through, right? And so if it's a major event, as that team moves from hole to hole, crowds are leaving, camera crew is taking down everything, bleachers are being taken down behind them. So if they're on the eighth hole, the seventh hole, they're already taking it apart and everybody's leaving. It's this odd thing to watch. So by the time they get to the 18th hole, those are the only people left. That's this little microcosm. And they're like, yay, you won. And they would walk out underneath the bleachers and hardly anybody would be there. I'd seen them go into the players' lounge and all their buddies are gone already. Because if you didn't make the cut, you left already. If you already played, you're hauling to get out of there. You got the next place to go or you got to go home. And I saw them pretty down and out. So it is something that can happen. But to me, that's a lack of a good mental game.
Mm. So then the reverse, and maybe the healthier, better, whatever word you want to use, would be I can experience this amazing experience, this amazing accomplishment, and because I'm not defined by people's opinions or external people at all, because I'm not defined by those, I can stay at a heightened state of a healthier state. I can feel good about myself, whatever. So what is it about, like, where can you find your source of satisfaction, your source of enjoyment
Joy, yeah.
as a yeah, joy would be a good word for it, in a place other than the trophy, the winning check, the people cheering you, your peers waiting around you. What's another source?
I know, right? Well, first of all, to remind yourself that you're doing something you love. You know, a lot of times golfers and athletes, they can get so discouraged in their performance or their score that, you know, they're throwing their clubs, they're kicking them, you know, kicking their bag. If the, I've seen it, you know, if the clubs don't fly out, then they're like tearing them up, whipping them across, you
Yeah.
know, that's not enjoying the moment, right? So I think we can come up with a lot of examples of people in golf and in life being pretty miserable. And that is how they're choosing, whether they know it or not, but it is a choice, but it's how they're choosing to look at that situation. Um, Again, a person can learn how to think about things differently. So I think one of the really big ways is in like a post shot routine that, you know, not the pre shot, but the post shot. That I call it a post segment routine because it can be applied to anything, any segment of time. But, you know, after a shot, after a hole, how are you reflecting on that? And if it's a miss of some sort, then the tendency is to be angry about it, to be upset. And that's all ego. And the ego is wants satisfaction and wants what you want right now. It has a definition of what that has to look like and when it has to happen. And to tame down that ego and go back to reality. The reality is, you know, I'm on the PJ Tour. It's a freaking beautiful day. I'm making a great living. I enjoy all of these people that I'm hanging out with. You know, if it's a weekend warrior, it's like, how great is it that I get to be out here with my buddies, that I actually physically am capable of it? Because that's a whole nother issue, right? Especially as people get older. There's so many things to be grateful for. And that's a very deliberate mindset to look for those things and to see them. I always say that, you know, if you have these goals to win a tournament, to beat your buddies, to win on the PJ Tour, like whatever it is, God, if you want to say, like higher power, whoever, they're handing to you everything you want to achieve that. And what you want to achieve it is in the misses. So in the misses, it's like a neon sign highlighting exactly what you need to work on in order to achieve the goal that you want. Like, and if you don't pause to work on it, you're just going to keep seeing it. So you're going to be stagnant and keep doing the same thing over and over again and keep getting the same results and basically be at, you know, this plateau unless you find a healthy, constructive way to pull out the data from the miss. And that doesn't mean having a temper tantrum and kicking the clubs and being upset about it and being angry and regretful and worried and start tearing your confidence down. And it's all the opposite of that. It's like, what is it, either mentally or mechanically, that occurred here that I may be able to fix before the next shot or the next hole, or I need to put in my pocket and practice it and get the repetition in my practice so that I can take this whole game to the next level, because you won't if you don't do that.
I love that the misses are a neon sign. We usually want to forget about the misses and we want to only experience the highs of the good ones, of the good shots, but you're saying the misses are the most important part of a round of golf, maybe even.
Yeah, I don't know that the most important, but definitely probably the least recognized as important. How about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, sure.
And
Underrated.
yeah, underrated and hugely valuable. I mean, again, you know, you're not going to get to where you want to go unless you start identifying what's keeping you from getting there. You know, it's important to identify the positives too, because, you know, another thing that I teach and I've watched and witnessed is that, you know, people are like, oh, well, you know, I'm struggling in my confidence. I doubt myself and this and that. And And I'm like, well, we need to work on your confidence. And they go, well, I can't build my confidence unless I'm winning. And so then confidence ends up being attached to winning, right? Or whatever, having a certain score, whatever
Doing
goal
well, yeah.
yeah. And that's not the case either. You can build confidence deliberately. You can also tear it apart. And a lot of competitors tear it apart even when they have got the good score. They still find flaw in what they've done. They can win and they still can think they could have done better or should have done better. So there's a huge issue with how a person thinks about things and whether or not they're building or destroying their confidence. I know a lot of competitive athletes that it's just never good enough, right? And so being negative about your performance there's just no doubt about it. It's going to destroy your confidence. So there's an opportunity there to not destroy your confidence to be like, what am I doing here? And what can I do instead? And to find the good in a situation. And it takes a lot of work to be able to have that level of mental game and to call yourself out on it. But to be able to have a miss and see the good in it probably sounds crazy to most of your listeners, but I think it makes sense intellectually, and they'll be like, wow, that is interesting. I'd like to figure out how to do it, right? Because it does make sense. But, if we go back to the first question about the zone and a feeling of euphoria, joy, whatever it is that you want to call it, that is a common denominator in every single athlete I've ever interviewed about the zone. The opposite of joy is, like I said, is worry and doubt and fear and regret and all that. So by nature of not managing your mind properly, you're actually keeping yourself out of that peak performance state. So it all kind of comes full circle.
Mm. Why do you call it the post-segment routine?
Yeah, well, because, and you're asking some great questions here. For me, an athlete, everything that is great or could use some work in a human is under a microscope in a competition, right? So to me, the competition is like everything that's good or great about me or everything that's not so great is magnified. So if I need to work on not being pissed off at myself and kicking my clubs, can I really just accomplish that on the weekend competition? Or should I look at it as something about me and my personality and my experience and my programming, my belief systems that are more about who I am as a person versus who I am as a golfer on the weekend? And so to me, if you kind of like pull back a little bit and go, well, these are tendencies of my personality. I mean, I was raised this way. My father beat me. I have always been hard on myself. I find that I'm still trying to prove to my mother, my father, that I'm good enough, like whatever it is. And so that stuff's going on in there, right? And now I forgot your question.
Yeah, the post-segment. Why segment? Yeah.
Yeah. So I tell my athletes that everything you learn from me related to the mental game needs to be practiced just like the mechanics need to be practiced. And that means ahead of time, right? You don't change your swing on the Friday before the Saturday competition. You and then try to implement it. You need to have had repetition, and that all has to do with the conscious and subconscious mind. And you want something to already be on autopilot. Well, the mental's the same thing. Like if all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm going to stop being upset when I miss. Okay, well, you're not going to be able to do that on Saturday if you don't know how to do it otherwise in life. So to me, life is the practice field for the mental game, just like going to practice the mechanics on the golf course. It's, certain times and getting instruction or whatever. So we're pulling it out of golf and we're putting it into life. And so it's not just If we're looking at a pre-shot, pre-station, there's also post-shot, post-station, around or whole, I should say. I'm sorry, I work with a lot of different kinds of athletes.
Sure, sure.
And then you pull that into life, and it becomes like, let's say, pre-meeting,
Right.
pre-conference call, post-meeting, post-conference call. So it ends up being a segment of time that doesn't have to be a shot, a hole, a round. It's a segment of time. And in order for me to get the repetition of this mental skill set, I need to pull this into my life. And how am I when I come out of a meeting where I didn't get the deal? How am I when I come out of a meeting, not a meeting, but let's say a conversation with my partner, and she's driving me crazy and she's not agreeing with me, right? So, how can I reflect on that in a constructive way? So, there's kind of step by steps that I have for my pre and my post, that I teach people.
Yeah, is this a checklist that people should go through, or is this more of a just reflect on it, just process it? Is it more tactile, or is it more intangible? How do you see it? The
Yeah.
post segment routine.
Well, I've developed like a 21 lesson program that's an online course. So there are a lot of things that I kind of teach along the way. And so by the time I get to something like the post segment sequence, I don't have it, but let's say it's probably around lesson 17 or 18. And so what they've learned and what they've already been practicing in the first 18 lessons, then I'm saying this is where you put it. Um, I actually don't even teach the pre-shot until 21. So
No kidding.
many people want the pre-shot routine up front. Not everybody, but there's a lot of them that like think that's my solution right there. I need to get my pre-shot, and they want it early, and I put it last on purpose, because there's so much to learn along the way. But again, what that person is learning and getting skilled at, they then know where to put it. So in the post, it could be one of the things is neutral reflection. So again, at a conscious level, being able to reflect back on what just happened from a place of neutrality instead of an emotional attachment to it, right? Collecting data and seeing it as data, um, patting yourself on the back, acknowledging what actually went well because of what I already explained related to confidence. So even in the miss, like acknowledge some of the great things you did do, because you don't want to do the opposite and tear yourself down. A visualization, but there's a lot of mental trainers out there that are teaching visualize it as if you hit it perfectly, and that's it. Like that's all that would happen in the post. There's a few different things I've come across. One is pretend you did hit it right and move on. Like just pretend, like total denial. Like let's
Sure.
just be in total denial,
Huh.
and move. And another is the buddy patting him on the shoulder and being like, "Oh, forget about it. Just forget
Mm.
about it. Let's go on to the next one." Another is, well, visualize it as if it did go exactly what you wanted, or it did go in the hole, and then move on. To me, I'm a hypnotist, so visualization is important and very powerful, but it needs to be done right. Like, don't try to fool yourself. Don't just pretend that it went in, because your subconscious, first of all, is smarter than that, and you won't accept it. So, what you have to do is make it believable. So, for me, in the post, you've collected data, you've done a neutral reflection, you saw the things that have gone well, you pull all that together, and you do a visualization. So, you're going to include all that went well, but also, if I knew then what I know now, because I've just learned something, if I knew then what I know now, let me then see how this would have played out differently. And
Hmm.
that's the kind of visualization, being present in the visualization and all that's important too.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it's more of a here's here's what happened, not here's how I feel about what happened necessarily. Here is what happened, and here's here are the good things that I did well in it. And now that I know these things and I know the result of the shot and I know the things that I did well, if I could go back to the beginning of the shot, what would I do different? How would I use this information to hit the shot better? Is that
Yeah.
a summary there?
Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
much better than just pretending you did it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, making something up in your head. Yeah, that seems
Yeah.
fake.
Right.
It
And
is
your brain's
literally is.
smarter than that, right?
Right. Yeah, it
That's why,
knows.
yeah. That's why affirmations don't always work. People think these affirmations, I can make these little sticky notes and put them everywhere. They can work if they're done right, but they have to be believable. Don't just try to fool yourself into something. Your mind, if subconsciously you've got belief systems already. So if you're like, I'll never amount to anything, I'll never make it on tour, I'll never beat my buddies, they're all better than me, I don't spend enough time practicing, so I'll really never do good, whatever it is, that's already down in there. And just by making a sticky note that says I'm the best in my club, it's no, but it could be something like every day I'm improving, I'm taking instruction, I'm working on some things, I'm practicing more, I started a mental program, whatever it is. Then it can be like every day I'm improving and getting better, and I can tell that I'm working towards beating my buddies. Right? That feels better and is more believable and is more likely to be accepted.
Mm. I love that, because that's back to the neutrality. You're not pretending that you're going to do great. You are seeing what you're doing as it is. You're not wishing things were different. Here's what I'm doing, and here's what I'm doing well. So it's more of a, okay, I don't feel like I'm doing enough, but let's pay attention to what I actually am doing. And well, that was actually more than I realized. I'm hitting more golf balls a week than I realized I was, or I work out 3 times a week, so my body is staying in shape or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
instead of that big belief system kind of running the show, and you agree with it and never second guess it, then instead of that, you set that belief system to the side and say, okay, what am I actually doing? I think that's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I love
Mm-hmm.
that. So you said, kind of this contentment or the satisfaction or this joy that accompanies the zone or that euphoria, should we always aspire to feel good? Like, is feeling good the standard, and anything below it is quote unquote wrong, or something we should
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
experience?
I'm following you. And ultimately, yes, but that's what enlightenment is. That's when you are evolving and evolving and evolving and evolving, and it's something maybe to aspire to. But I think as long as that we are in this physical body having this human experience, we do have ego, and ego is, it's all about me. I'm right, you're wrong. This is the way it needs to be, should be, not needs to be. It
Yeah,
should have
yeah.
already happened this way. This should be happening in this time. You shouldn't have done that. Like that's part of this human experience, and it keeps us separated and pretty aggravated or whatever else. So we will always have that to work on. To me, it's important to recognize the ego and tame it down. Don't feed it steak dinner every single day. So it's like raging and a maniac, right? Like keep it tamed down. Society feeds the ego. The media feeds the ego. Fear-based thinking is what the ego is all about. Also, catastrophes and horribleness, and this is awful. And again, you can think about the media feeding in that, but that's what you're doing on a smaller scale on the golf course when you miss or when you don't get the score that you want. So again, if the peak performance state that we call the zone is always available to us, it's a natural state. It's a quieting of that conscious ego mind. It's euphoric. It's joyful. not, I would say, why would we just reserve that for when you're playing golf, right? Why wouldn't you want to strive to experience your peak performance state, your euphoric state, your joy state? You're in the moment, um, embracing that moment, mindful and deliberate, applying the best of who you are and what you've learned along the way to that moment. Like, how great would that be to do that as much as possible? And so I would say it would be great to strive towards that. Um, but it's an ongoing challenge because, if somebody's at the office and they're standing around the water cooler or the coffee, the buddies, the other employees, or even at the golf club, the other golfers are likely talking about their misery, right? So they're likely talking about how horrible the weather is, their horrible weekend, their horrible spouse, their horrible shots, their horrible whatever, what went wrong with their car over the weekend, whatever it is. And that's become like the normalcy to talk about miserable things. And you could see that would keep not only a human, but a golfer out of being their best self. So it ends up, if somebody really starts to work on this kind of mental game, they do, kind of weed out by necessity the kind of people that are really negative or miserable. Misery loves company, but so does like being positive and joyful and happy. Likeness attracts likeness. So to be able to possibly change the circles of who you're hanging out with, not take things as personally, let go of things if somebody's on a whole different page than you and chooses to be miserable and doesn't really want to be open to thinking differently. You got to be able to let go of that. And there's a whole lot to it, really. But to me, it's like a win-win to be able to work on the mental game for golf and to look at it like, well, I need to practice in life. Then the person ends up being a more peaceful, happier person always, whether on the golf course or not, by nature of what they're learning to do.
Yeah, the more and more conversations I have on this podcast is it tells me, it's more and more evidence that golf mental game or golf psychology is just psychology as a human applied to golf, or your mental performance or your mental experience as a person, and golf is just one little segment. Who we are as a person applied to golf. Golf is just one of the little slivers of the pie of our life.
Right.
So the practice is, okay, I'm really just working on myself as a person, and then I'm going to go play golf and apply these things. So the question that comes to mind for me is, like traditional therapy or even traditional hypnosis, where it's not you. Is it sufficient to just never talk about golf at all? Like, we're talking about you as a person, and then you will just naturally be, your performance on the golf course will naturally improve. Do you think? Is that your experience, or is that, you think, true?
Well, I definitely can't speak for all sports psychologists. In my opinion, the degreed program falls short of a lot of what I'm talking about and what I'm teaching. So I can't speak on behalf of any of that. But I can definitely say, let's say, 20 years ago when I first started working with more elite level athletes, I heard there were some that would say, I'm not looking for a therapist. I'm not looking to dig up all my stuff from childhood. I'm looking to improve my golf game. So I don't need Dawn, right? Like, so there was this thing about, that's not what I'm signing up for, right? I just want a mental trainer to help me. Yeah. And so I feel like being a hypnotherapist is what they were interested in, because they were looking for the magic pill, right? They wanted to have what their competitor didn't have. They wanted some kind of magic pill, secret thing. And when I first started working with PGA Tour pros, there was emphasis by them that that's what they wanted, right? And so, absolutely, I can give suggestions on perfect putting, and I have hypnosis audio downloads for putting and chipping, and you can put anything into suggestion form. Being able to be present and confident, moving on from a miss and different things like that. So anything can go into suggestion form. But the more comfortable I got with myself working with the PGA pros, I started being a little bit more demanding, right? It was like, no, I'm not just coming out here to do hypnosis. Because one of the things that I saw in my private practice, as well as working with the pros, was that hypnosis could work really great for some people and not so great for others. Or it could work really great, and then 6 months or a year down the road, they can recreate the same problem because they don't know how to think differently consciously, or they're hanging out still with their teammates that are miserable, or, they're right back to kicking their clubs. Like whatever it is, it's because their exposure to life and they didn't maintain that change because of thinking cruddy again, or whatever the repetition was. With repetition, everything goes into your subconscious mind. So if you don't keep it status quo, you'll just recreate, right? So I saw that too. And then I'm like, well, that's not what I signed up for. I love helping people have really profound changes to the point that they're like, wow, that felt like a miracle. Like that was incredible. So in order for people to experience that, to me, they have to get a combination of mental training, which is conscious level, thinking better, and hypnosis, which then goes into the subconscious and the programming. And that's where habits and beliefs are. So to me, it has to be the combination. And then, yes, you can't just apply it to golf and you can't just apply it on a Saturday. You've got to apply it in life and as the human, and one of the PGA Tour pros that I worked with, and they didn't always open up to me about more personal things because, again, some of them were like, no, you're here to help me with my golf. But there was this one guy that was struggling, and in session, he did start talking about his father and feeling like that just was always that vibe of never enough and never being good enough. And no matter how well he did as a kid and how well he's performed in golf, it was still never good enough. And he could hear his father's voice in his head. So I did do hypnosis with him, and I did something called forgiveness therapy and had him, visually and while in the hypnotic state, do this forgiveness type therapy stuff. And he went out and he won the next week, and he won by a landslide. And it was cool. Like that's the kind of stuff that I would see.
Yeah, that rapidity, that how the speed with which things can improve, and that's for lack of a better word, that's the claim of hypnosis, right? When I use the word claim, it sounds like you guys are making this up. You're just claiming it, but that's what hypnosis touts. And for the listener, people are going to start thinking I'm a hypnosis podcast, but I'm not. I've had several hypnotists on here, so
Okay.
it's just something that fascinates me. It's just another realm of human performance. But the rapid nature, the rapid change, I come at that as I get skeptical when things are fast. When someone says you can change fast, it's rapid reprogramming. And so what would you say to me or to someone who says, all good things come to those who wait, right? You have to work on something patiently you got to grind, and it's got to be hard and difficult and uncomfortable for a long time, and then you can get there. So what would you say to someone like that?
Yeah, no, I love that. It's a great question. The bottom line is there's different levels of the mind, right? So there's a conscious mind and a subconscious. Again, ego's at the conscious mind. And so what we tend to think about, like, who am I, is all this conscious thought and trying to make something happen, trying to do something, trying to stop something that's happening. That's all at this conscious level. And that's what we're super familiar with. So even though the subconscious is extremely active, we're not as familiar. It's running under the surface, right? This loud, obnoxious conscious mind is what we think we are, but underneath is a super powerful subconscious. So your conscious mind can only process, they say, like 7 bits of information in a second. I personally don't even agree with that. Like, I can process like 3 or 4 bits in a second, meaning, let's say I'm running out the door for an appointment. I've got a coffee. I've got my cell phone. I need my computer bag. My dog's trying to sneak out the door. My coffee spills. The phone's ringing. Like, how many of those things can I really process at the same time? And it's not 7. It's not. So it's more like 3, and I'm juggling between them. And most ideally is when you have the single pointed attention, which is when your conscious mind's focusing on one, which it can really only do one thing at a time. That's why if you really needed to give somebody your undivided attention on the phone and you spilt your coffee, but this is extremely important phone call, you have to just stop what you're doing and go here, right? And so that's how the conscious mind is. Your subconscious mind is processing like 60 million bits of information in a second. It is the undercover hero, right? When you walk to a door to open it, the fact that you subconsciously know when to put your arm out, put your hand on the handle, turn it, pull it, and walk through. That's all subconscious. Your walking is subconscious. You're eating with a fork and not poking yourself in the eye. These are all things that you consciously learned, and through repetition, they went into your subconscious. So there's tons of programming down here. You don't have to consciously think of opening a door, feeding yourself, or driving a car, driving a stick shift, or riding a bike, or golfing, whatever it is that you've repeated over and over again. It's programmed down here. So there's pros and cons to that. Like, let's say, although it's not as common nowadays, but like cigarettes, right? So I smoke in the morning with my cup of coffee. I smoke when I'm reading the newspaper. I smoke when I get in the car. I smoke when I'm stressed out, when I'm on a break, right after I eat. So that's all repetition. So those things happen repeatedly at the conscious level. They went into subconscious. They became part of that person's programming. And when they would come to me for my hypnosis to quit smoking, they would say, consciously, I know better. I watched my mother and father die of emphysema. I don't know why I'm smoking. And so they're used to trying hard and trying all these tactics consciously and having little results. Hypnosis comes to this level of the mind. And that's the big difference. So by relaxing the conscious mind from beta to alpha or even theta, like, stop all the analyzing, stop doubting, stop critiquing every single word. And you're only going to do that if you want to, let's say, quit smoking, and you really want to be at that hypnotist's office, and you're invested in it. Then you're going to follow along as the hypnotist helps you to relax. You're going to be in a less critical state. You're going to be receptive to the suggestions because that's what you're coming in for. And when the suggestions are given to you in that state of mind, they literally go straight to this subconscious level. And that's what feels like a miracle, because we're used to challenging, struggling up here and maybe never succeeding at whatever change because it's already programmed down here. It's on autopilot, no different than opening the door handle and, driving a stick shift. So to be able to access the subconscious and have suggestions for the positive change, it compresses time, because it could have taken, if you succeeded, 30 days, 40 days, whatever, if you kept at it. Yeah. But to come in here, go straight to the programming, it seems miraculous because we went to the source. And not everybody's open to hypnosis, only because if they're scared and they have their guard up, or they're protective, then they're going to keep themselves in beta, super analytical, watching every move, listening to every word. They're not going to relax, so that keeps them out of hypnosis. The other thing is if you go to a hypnotist and you don't really want whatever's being said to you. So, back again with smoking, if a partner, like a husband, paid for the wife to go in to quit smoking and she didn't really truly want to, she wasn't going to accept the suggestion. So that applies to everything.
Yeah.
Um, but down there, like that golfer that I talked about, related to the not enough with his father, you could talk about stuff like that, talk therapy all day long. Well, you are good enough. Can you see the proof in your life? Well, let's
Hmm.
talk about what your father said and let's think about it differently and blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, you can do all that at the conscious level, but it doesn't necessarily tap into the programming at the subconscious. But to get hypnosis to tell that person, you're amazing, you have achieved great things in your life, look at all the successes, um, and look how far you can now go and open up. Like you can do a visualization, like the world is open up to you. Look at what's coming, and you can say all sorts of different things. And for the person who allowed themselves to go on hypnosis and who is receptive to those suggestions, it is instantaneous.
Wow. Okay. S- I mean, the amount of people I've had on that say that have I mean you know is confirming of it. So the back to kind of on the golf course, and you've mentioned several times the conscious and the subconscious and the alpha beta theta kind of mind states that we can be in. So on the golf course, as we're playing, how conscious should we be? How much should we be in this? I believe you said it was theta
Mm.
was the
Beta.
overly okay,
Hmm.
beta. It was the overly conscious state of where you are analyzing, critiquing, maybe thinking, right?
Right.
Trying things. So how much of our round of golf or the golf shot itself, where should we be at in these different levels?
No, that's another great question. And I think there's a lot of confusion um, for folks when they hear me talk about, the subconscious and they're, shooting. Again, I work with
Yeah, yeah,
different
yeah.
athletes. Performing from your subconscious is usually instinctive and intuitive and more automatic and all of that. So there can be some confusion related to well, how much conscious involvement. So there is let's say, the proper use of the conscious mind and the improper limiting use of it. So the proper use of it, well, let me start with the improper because I think it's more obvious. I mentioned worrying and doubt and fearing. Like if you've moved on from a hole and you're still thinking about it and it's your next shot, then that's the misuse of your conscious mind, right? First of all, you shouldn't be worrying about it. And secondly, you're in your next present moment. Like real life is where you are, like where your feet are, where your hands are, where you're at. That's real life. So if you're still in the previous hole, a previous shot, then you have taken yourself out of reality. If you're doing that related to the future, like if I keep this up, then I'm going to fail, or I'm not going to make the cut, or I'm going to lose this like I lose every other time. So that's the misuse of your conscious mind as well. So there's all these things that we're doing that would be incorrect. So then the correct use of it is bringing your conscious mind to the moment. Now, there are times to reflect on the past and there's times to think about the future, like setting goals is one of the proper uses of your conscious mind, but it should be, I'm sitting here, maybe I have my journal out, I'm taking notes, or I'm just kind of in the morning, I might be reflecting on yesterday or, thinking about my upcoming day and what the things I'd like to accomplish. So there are times where that's right and that's good. But if you're,
Planning, right?
yeah, if you're sitting in the middle of a meeting and, it's related to work and there's important details being discussed and you're thinking about the weekend coming up in your vacation, again, that's the misuse of your conscious mind. So, being
Hmm.
able to be in the present moment, I call it the focus loop. Your conscious mind can wander off into any of what I say are the 6 channels of the conscious mind, past, future, over analyzing, trying too hard, trying to force things, daydreaming. there's like 6 different channels where the conscious mind can be, like flipping through a TV. And the channel you want it in is the present moment, unless it's one of those times where I'm planning for my future or I'm reflecting neutrally on the past to learn something. There's things like that. So if you carry that to the golf course, registering, showing up, making sure you have all your stuff together, that's all analytical, right? Getting to the first hole, your pre-shot. My pre-shot segment, my pre-segment routine isn't just when you're ready to make your shot. Right. It's before. Also, that's another thing that was pretty unique to me for a long time. But, as you approach that hole, there's all sorts of information. If there's another teammate or another golfer taking shots and you're seeing them, making faces and frustration and commenting, that's input as well. So, be able to be neutral, stepping up into it, assessing the wind, the sun, all the data is conscious. So that's not anything that's on autopilot. That's not anything, that's new information. And that's when you should be conscious. Then, planning your shot and the actual pre-shot where you're about to implement the shot, then going consciously into, your feet and your knees and your body and your position, your hands, and feeling your hands on the grip. Like there's these things that you can do very deliberately to keep your conscious mind doing the right thing, because it will want to wander off. So those are some good examples.
Right. And then, so is there a way to take yourself, readily accessible is the term that comes to mind for me, to consistently put yourself from conscious to subconscious? Because I assume subconscious is where we want to be when we're actually swinging the golf club, because we're not, like you said, it's like eating with a fork. You don't need to think about the 18 different things during your golf swing. You want to be subconscious. So to go from conscious to subconscious because in a matter of 5 seconds, you need to have gone from conscious to subconscious, from your pre-shot, from I know my target because I analyzed it with my conscious mind and chose it, to now it's time to execute. I need to be subconscious. How can you do that quickly?
That's a great question also. And 15, 20 years ago, I used to think the conscious mind needed to be in the back seat and the subconscious driving the car. I don't see it that way anymore. They're partners. And when they're doing it right, they're partnered up. And that conscious mind is present in the passenger seat, side or like a dog sitting and healing next to you, right? Because the alternative for the conscious mind is, again, still thinking about the previous shot or over-analyzing this one or trying to be careful or trying too hard. So the conscious mind, it needs to be present instead of doing any of those other things. It needs to be present and it needs to be sitting and healing. Okay, so it already did its, it already fetched. How about that? It already fetched the information and now it's sitting and healing. So it fetched, the lay of the land and the wind and the sun and my focus point. And then it's sitting and healing. And your subconscious, you go into faith. You go into trust and faith and letting go. Because ideally, in order to perform from your subconscious, it has to already be programmed in there, right? That's all your instruction and your training ahead of time. So there's no tapping into something that's not there. So you gotta
Can't trust something that's not there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, but letting go, I'm actually trademarking the let go principle, because it's so huge with athletes. And a lot of times it shows up when they're performing poorly and then they want to quit and they want to give up and they let go, and all of a sudden they start doing well again, right? And so that let go needs to be packaged, right? It doesn't need to come after getting pissed off. It needs to be packaged and brought up to the front and in the spot where you're talking about. And again, it's odd for us because we think we're this conscious mind. We think we're driving the show with this conscious level thinking in the ego mind. And to tell that to sit and heal, like you've already done your job, now sit and heal. And at the same time, it's important to keep your eye on the prize. I mean, keep your eyes focused on your goal and and just have faith and trust and follow through. You might have a swing song. What is
okay. Yeah, a swing, like a song you're thinking while you're swinging. Interesting. Okay.
One of the PGA pros I worked with, he said, "I love the beaches in Hawaii. I love the beaches in Hawaii."
This is like his tempo.
Yeah, his tempo, but also to make sure he followed through and everything, but to keep his conscious mind present. Like it was a way you can repeat "I love the beaches in Hawaii" a bunch of times, and it could hypothetically go into your subconscious, but it's pretty likely that you're going to be like, okay, what's that song again?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. "I love the beaches in Hawaii."
Mm-hmm.
If he's listening, he'll probably get pissed I gave away one of his secrets, but
That's okay. That's okay. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Man,
It was Ted Purdy. He was one of the ones that I worked with a lot
gotcha.
back then. Yeah.
Cool. I love that. I love that word faith, and I've never heard that. I've heard trust, and I guess they're pretty synonymous. But I like that. Okay, I've made my choice. Now I got to have faith that I can do this. I think that's a beautiful word.
It's such a powerful word, right? And I think words do have power as far as how we interpret. It's kind of like joy seems more powerful than just have fun, right? Like
or happiness.
Yeah. And you can kind of play with your mind even with words like that, right? So if your goal is to experience joy, it's like, oh, I'm taking that to a whole nother level. If your goal is to experience faith, it's like, ooh, oh, wait, do I really have faith? Yeah, because it's faith in yourself, faith in the moment, like it is what it is, and I'm going to appreciate and enjoy it for what it is. Faith in a higher self, faith in a higher power, whatever that looks like for people. But faith in general, like let's say faith in higher power. Let's just say none of us are really going to know till we die what the afterlife looks like, what this higher power is or isn't or whatever. We're not ever going to really know that for sure. But what I can tell you for sure is that the moment you have true faith in a power greater than yourself, you get out of ego. And remember, that's one of the things we're looking to do. So you're looking to tame that thing down. And when you turn the wheel over, there's a song, Jesus Take the Wheel, right? And I don't necessarily try to push any religion or anything, but I'm very spiritual because these concepts are very powerful. So, what does it mean when a Christian says, Jesus take the wheel? Well, that means I'm going to stop trying to make things happen. I'm going to stop being angry when they don't go my way. So there's a lot of poems and different things around that concept. But yeah, faith is letting go.
It's beautiful. We started with spiritual, ended with spiritual. That's a good summation of this conversation. Well, Don, I wish I've got so many more things that I wish I got to ask you, and I added more as we went, but we don't. I'm respectful of your time. So, where would you send people? What would you have them go look at? What are you selling? Do you have anything to share with people?
For sure. Well, first of all, I'm on all social media platforms, and I give out free tips all the time. So there's reels and videos with free tidbits, like the same kind of light bulb moments that you would have experienced during this. So any of the social media, that's Dawn Grant. And then my website is dawngrant.com. And if you go to dawngrant.com/free, you can actually get some free stuff. You can get free access to my mental training on demand. I have an online course for golfers. I have an app called Mind Master. There's all sorts of stuff that you can get some access to for free.
Great. I love that. dawngrant.com and social media.
/free.
Yeah, /free. That's cool. I like that. I need to use /free on my website. People are going to go to that one. I like that. Well, cool. Dawn, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining another episode of the Mental Golf Show. If you like this episode, you will also definitely like my weekly golf newsletter, The Mental Regrip. You can check out the link to subscribe in the show notes. And be sure to check out the show notes for some awesome deals on some really great golf products. All right, everyone, get out there and play freely, and I will catch you guys next time.